Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this event on our very important eco subject. Our eco subject is, of course, waste. Now, you're not a wasteful person, are you? And I hope none of us are. But unfortunately, that is one of today's big problems. And what can we do about it? Well, I was driving here earlier on, and I passed three mounds, three hills, if you like, on the A40. They have a fine view of Heathrow Airport. They're covered with grass, and you get people climbing up and enjoying the view. But the secret is that they're actually compacted black plastic bin bags, mounds of them, hills of them. They are an incredible use of our waste, recycling our waste. Well, the problem is that the worst kind of e-waste, in my view, is, of course, e-waste. And we are very e-wasteful. I'm just looking at the time now on my mobile, and I've got my numerous electrical devices open here, where electrical device equals something with a cable and a plug. Do you have any of those? What do you do with them when they're done? Do you use computers? The answer, of course, is recurrent. Of course we do. And this is something that we still need to do something about. We are very pleased today to have an expert, or a resident expert, if you like, or on e-waste, and that's Scott Butler of Material Focus. I'm going to be introducing or passing you over to Scott in a minute. But my role in this is that my name is Dalim. I'm the chairman of BCS London branches, and we have an eco initiative led by Santana, who you can probably see on screen here. We also are very pleased to be partnered with the GreenIT specialist group of BCS. And I'm very pleased to have Margaret Ross, who is chair of that group, along with a couple of other branches as well. So, Margaret, would you like to give an introduction?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Um, just to say that I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Green IT Specialist Group. I think this is such an important topic, something that, again, people should be um, pleased to have, like antique furniture, antique jewellery. I think maybe they need to, in the future, try to get some the idea of having antique IT equipment. Maybe this is a new way to get people to think. And if you would like any more of the Green IT events, we have our AGM coming on with all the latest things coming up in Green IT on the 31st of October. So, do join us if you'd like to. But we're very pleased to join in today because, as Galim said, this is so critical and it's so wasteful. And of course, thank you very much for including us. Thank you, Dan.
Oh, welcome. Santana, would you, as our eco initiative lead, like to say anything before we kick off in earnest?
Yes, so as we're going to celebrate International E-Waste Day, which is on the 14th of October, our two speakers this evening will enlighten and inspire all of us to do a bit more on how we can sustain our electronics and do better in our workplaces, in our home. And we hope to listen to their views on how we can make this a better place. Thank you.
That's great. And Santana, finally, you want to give a brief, you mentioned our two speakers. I mentioned Scott, but you want to just give a very brief intro to both of them?
Yeah, so just give a quick. So Scott Butler is an executive director at Material Focus. He's a businessman with sustainability and tech expert for over 20 years experience working for Material Focus, European recycling platform, Samsung, Science Museum Group, Royal Mail, and the Environment Agency. He has led up and set up successful and innovative environmental sustainability, circular economy, extended producer responsibility, and behavioral change programs. His key achievement includes setting up Material Focus, a non-for-profit leading the UK-wide Recycle Your Electrical Behaviours Change campaign. Material Focus also produces insightful research on all things e-waste and fund and support new collection and drop-off options that are now make it easier for millions of people in the UK to fix, donate, and recycle their old and unwanted electricals. I'll move on to Jonathan Bao, who's an experienced leader that has worked across multiple functional and executive roles, including general management, sales leadership, business development, partnerships, demanding generation, marketing and go-to-market strategies across domestic and international markets, with a strong understanding of culture to build high-performing teams and deliver results. With extreme experience in the technology industry, having worked in some of the largest technology companies on the planet, Jonathan understands how technology includes AI and machine learning can help organizations transform and modernize in order to become truly data-driven to stay relevant and complete in today's fast-paced economy. An extreme creative individual who thrives on building, nurturing, and developing high-performing teams from startup to full-scale operation. Jonathan has proven abilities to create strategies, successfully delivering through effective execution, whilst motivating and inspiring teams and leading by example. So hopefully these two speakers will speak on two different areas of their expertise, and we hope to hear from them this evening.
Great. And of course, we have a third part of this, don't we? That is you. We have an audience at the moment of almost 60 people, and we are really looking forward to hearing your views and having your participation. Usual things. This is a webinar, so if you have comments, enter them into the chat, into the Q&A. We'll try and pick them up, pass them to our speakers, and get them answered for you. So, with over an hour to go, time for us to pass over to Scott and kick off this event. My apologies, by the way, again, for the technical hit that caused a delay to our start time. Scott, over to you.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent.
Wow.
Okay. So thank you all for the invitation. Thanks in advance to Jonathan as well for joining me to enlighten us around what he and his great company are doing with AI and machine learning and how they're helping tackle this. As we said, it's International E-Waste Day coming up, which is an annual event which is coming up next week, sorry. And also, just to give you a heads up, we're hopeful of a quite an interesting story landing tomorrow, where we've been looking at copper in electricals and the importance of copper to the green tech future, but that's all embargoed at the moment. That's just a teaser. So I'll race you through some of the big issues that we're tackling with, yeah, let's crack on. So who are we? Who are Material Focus? We're an independent not-for-profit. We have a vision. It's a very big vision, which is a world where no materials are wasted. So we set ourselves an objective that we're probably never going to reach, but we haven't done that blindly. We use that as our motivating tool to do all the stuff that we do. And the area that we're really focusing on at the moment are electricals and waste electricals, primarily because they're some of the most valuable materials on the planet. A lot of trouble has got into getting them out of the ground and all the impacts associated with that, environmental and social. And it seems a bit crazy that we're losing far too many of them to the wrong behaviour. And our funding comes as part of the waste regulations in the UK around waste electricals. Ultimately, it's funded by producers and importers of electricals who don't meet targets set to them. And they are part of our stakeholder group, but we're very much independent of them. So what is the sort of scale? What is the challenge? Why are we interested in this? So across households and across businesses, over 2 million tons of electricals are bought. And that's it's electricals of all shapes and sizes. So you're talking American style fridge freezers down to arguably the most disastrous product ever made, a disposable vape, and everything in between that. And again, they're all full of these very valuable materials. In terms of the scale of the challenge at the moment, there is good news. We are recycling quite a lot of electricals. Around 500,000 tons are going to approved electrical recyclers. There's probably another 300,000 tons of large domestic appliances that are going to scrap metal recyclers. Maybe not the quality that we would want, but they're not being lost entirely. But one of the things we found out is that too many small electricals are being binned. People don't know what to do with them, and in that moment, they're doing one of two things. So they're binning a lot of them, or they're holding on to them. So one of the things that unites us in an ever increasingly divided world is that we've all got a drawer of doom or a box of cables or a bag of something tucked away that we didn't know what to do with it. And thankfully we didn't bin it, but we've held on to it for some miraculous time in the future where we might find out what that cable connects to. And that's a big focus for what we're doing this year with our Great Cable Challenge, where we're calling on people to make some space. You can free that cable. It's full of copper, hence the story that I talked about earlier. Also, there is dodgy activity going on. We can't hide that. A lot of it is IT equipment as well that is not working and is illegally exported, or you do have theft of scrap metal, and there still is fly tipping going on as well. So what have we been doing to increase reuse and recycling? We'll be doing a lot, but this is a sort of summary of how we talk about ourselves. I know Jonathan's a big fan of threes, and we're a big fan of three. Three is the magic number. Vini, Vidi, Vici, hands, face, space, all those sort of things. But basically, threes are great because you have a sort of a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the beginning gets people intrigued. The middle adds some flavor, and the end is the like, wow, that's okay. We get what you're doing. So we work in three main strands. We have an insight strand, which radically, what we do is based on facts. We go out and find stuff out. We go, what are people thinking about this? What are they feeling? How easy do they think it is to reuse and recycle? What about some of the technical things in the industry, such as critical raw material recovery? A lot of very precious, sort of minuscule amounts of rare earths are in tech, and they make it smart. Do we need to build some infrastructure funding? Things like that. We've also looked at vapes, as I said before. We scaled that issue. All the numbers you would have seen around disposable vapes came from us. We've also increasingly been talking about battery fires, which is a big focus of where this presentation and Jonathan's actually ultimately leads to. But we don't just find stuff out, we then respond to what we find out. So we invest in projects that make it easier for the people of the UK to reuse and recycle. So that's more drop-off points, that's amnesty days. We're also about to launch a circular electricals fund, which is looking at products, materials, and business models. So it's a lot of stuff that we're doing to try and keep, activity going. Making it easier for people is really important from a behavior change perspective. And then our third strand is what we call inspiration, and that's our education and communication work. Some of you may have seen he's on television now for the next 3 weeks. A mad, techno-loving, bright, psychedelic, pink hypno cat who's out there recycling the nation and hypnotizing the nation to reuse and recycle. But we also use some of our research to land stories in the mainstream media. So Draw of Doom is really popular, it lands. We've done some work on battery fires to raise the profile of that issue as an example of that. And again, a bit of a tease, we've got this copper story landing, which is exactly like that, where we're getting people to see and hear about recycling electricals in lots of different ways through lots of different channels. So on the insight strand, we took a look at where products were, what was happening to them, how are they getting onto the market, and where were we losing them to the stuff that we didn't want to happen to them. We've updated that recently. So that's the first time really that the UK ever, and probably any other country, had a proper measure on what was happening with the electricals that were coming onto the market. Big criticism of the current UK system is that it's obsessed with recycling targets, which are tonnage based. And arguably it's motivating sometimes behavior that you wouldn't want, because reuse isn't measured because it's never become waste. So is it encouraging stuff that could be reused or donated into being recycled, because then it counts against the regulations? And we've proposed a number of metrics that are looking at a bigger picture, which is, focusing maybe more on materials rather than the actual obsession with, do we really care if it's a fridge or if it's a television? or do we care about the materials that are inside of it? A lot of work on behaviors and attitudes, so big behavioral change, social science element to what we do. We do a lot of work on industry briefings, so we're supporting retailers and producers into compliance. Whilst ignorance isn't a defense, sometimes your companies are busy doing lots of things, and we try and make it as easy for them to get into the program as possible. As I said before, looking at critical raw materials, and then some new challenges. Vapes is one, a product that nobody envisaged 4 years ago, and now we've got 5 million of them. 5 million dangerous, wasteful, toxic fire sticks are basically binned or littered in the UK every week, causing all manner of problems. And we'll touch upon some of that in a minute with the battery fire stuff. We've also identified this new thing, of which vapes is a subset, that we're calling FastTech. We've had fast fashion. How's that going for us? We've had fast food. How's that going for us? Are we in the age of fast tech? Have we learned anything from before? So it's a lot of sort of, as you can see, consumer-friendly communications to try and get people's attention in what is a very busy world where lots of people are trying to get us to buy something, watch something. How do we cut through? And a lot of cross-sector working, looking at things like digital inclusion, looking at repair, and also looking at portable batteries. While it's not part of what we do, strictly speaking, a lot of that fast tech, a lot of that portable tech is full of what we call hidden batteries, predominantly lithium-ion batteries, which is why a lot of work is going into that to try and stop the damage that they're having. So this is when I hope the technology has changed and becomes our friend, I think, because the next slide is a video. So fingers crossed, everyone.
This story is not an isolated incident. Mickey is a recycling lorry driver and one of hundreds of workers experiencing fires like these. In fact, the problem is getting worse. Last year there were over 1,200 fires in bin lorries and recycling centres, and all of these fires were caused by crushed or damaged batteries. Loose batteries like these, and the ones hidden in our electricals, like these. These fires can be challenging for the fire services to deal with and have a significant impact on local communities. It's easy to think something so small won't matter, but if we throw batteries in with our general rubbish or recycling, they can get crushed or punctured. And this releases chemicals which come into contact with the air, and bang, you've got a serious and dangerous fire. So never bin batteries or electrical items. Always recycle them separately from your other rubbish and recycling. You can drop them off at dedicated battery and electrical recycling points. To find your nearest recycling point, just search Recycle Your Electricals and pop in your postcode.
Ooh. Did that work?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, good. That for us is actually more serious than we normally would do things. Anyone who's seen our work knows that we do tend to be a little bit ziggy while everybody's zagging and try and do different things. But for that one, we felt it was really important to use a trusted voice. Nobody trusts a message about fires more than the National Fire Chief Officer. And we also, when we did that work, we partnered up with the air pollution scientists at Imperial College. So another strand to that story is the localized air pollution that's caused when the fires take place. And it also allows us to talk to people who may not necessarily be pro-environmental, but very few people are pro-public workers and, you know, the public being put at risk from fires. So it's sort of a slightly different tone. But here is just a slide showing you that insights work and the work that we've done there, which is the more serious side to our stuff. In terms of investments, we've got three, what a surprise. We've got three main strands of funding. One that's very live is the Electricals Recycling Fund, which is working with, as you can see, a number of local authorities across the UK, from the Orkneys down to the Isles of Scilly, and from Derry all the way over to Norfolk. So north, south, east, and west. Or west and east. I did it that way, didn't I? Thinking about it, I did it the wrong way around. But that's helped over 10 million more people. As I said, we've got the Circular Electricals Fund launching soon. And we're also looking at developing a community recycling fund, which is more about village halls, sports clubs, those sort of things, getting some support to sort of be mini sort of drop-off hubs in their communities. And then Inspiration, which is our Recycle Your Electricals campaign. Pretty obvious, straightforward name, but what we're trying to do there, really important, is it's not just about recycling. We're trying to make recycling be more than that, for it to be the whole waste hierarchy around donation, sell and recycle, and fix as well, and arguably don't buy some of this stuff in the first place. But all the research we showed was a vast extent of stuff being binned and wasted. So we want to lift recycling up to be the worst thing that people do. And we believe that when you can do that, we can also have this story, this narrative, this discussion with them about all the other things that they can be doing. Two, positive is that 8% of UK think recycling is a good thing, yet 40% still bin their electricals. So our primary messenger for this is, I said, HypnoCat. I think the next slide, you haven't seen him, you'll see him, and you'll probably never forget him. So sorry, not sorry. He's designed not to necessarily, he is loved by many people, but that's not the point. He's designed to stop people and make them look and think and see what's happening. So here he is. That's the postcode locator that we built. When we started this 4 years ago, there were about 3,000 collection points recorded in the UK. We've now added that. We've upped that to 26,000 drop-off points, really boosting the levels of communication. And it's easier than most people think to recycle their electricals. And we've got more high streets. People like Currys will now take anything back regardless of a new purchase. Indeed, they'll give you a £5 voucher at the moment for it as well to offer new purchase. B&Q and John Lewis and more are now joining that. And this is a sort of, as you see, the more positive things that we're doing. So this is just a brief set of images from the various things that we've done. We've been on the partnerships with shows like the Gadget Show. We've got Zara Rhodes there, who designed a bag for us. We've put these bright pink bring banks out on the street. We did some work with Nicola Roberts, who wore from Girls Aloud, who wore a dress designed entirely made from cables. We even MRI stroke X-ray scanned a Furby, because that's what you do, to sort of show that inside electricals there's all these valuable materials. And we built a giant toaster, which is currently on display in Bristol. And also we're working with waste management companies and local authorities by getting signage. And then here at the top, you can see that's a John Lewis department store with around 80 screens all at once with HypnoCat on it. So in their showrooms. And that was a painful experience, I think, for the people who were in the room when they saw 80 of him playing all at once. And here is our HypnoCat that we bang on about.
I am HypnoCat. Recycle your electricals. Recycle your electricals. Don't bin your electricals. Recycle your electricals. Anything with a plug, battery, or cable can be recycled into life-saving equipment or tiny kitten cycles. Recycle your electricals. Recycle your electricals. Don't bin your electricals. Recycle your electricals. Bag them up and search Recycle Your Electricals to find your local drop-off points. Meow. I am hip.
So, not your obvious choice for an environmental campaign, but as I said, that was quite deliberate. And the impact he has is quite huge. It's funny, if you do Google Analytics when we know he's out and about and he's on TV, for example, he's in Coronation Street today. Not actually in Coronation Street, but in the ad break for Coronation Street. And you can actually see people doing what we asked them to do. They search Recycle Your Electricals and the numbers jump up. But as I said, it's not just that. We've been across all mainstream media, from the Daily Star through to the Financial Times. We've had many appearances on the BBC, including BBC Breakfast. I was on the sofa there. The One Show we've been on as well, and various front pages and big stories across the national press. And that's just a reflection of the impact we've having. So we launched in 2020, or we were planning in 2019 and then launch in 2020. And you just see the rise, the media interest in this whole issue around e-waste, which we believe was significantly, we played a significant role in. We can't take credit for everything in there, but we certainly have played a big role in that. And it's having an impact. 66% of the population say they recycled at least one electrical in the past year. We've had over 3 million new visitors to our website. So that's not users who are coming back. Our focus is very much on new users. The idea being that they come, they find their nearest drop-off point, and that's hopefully locked into their memory, and they can then do their recycling from then on in. And when we looked at the national data sets comparing 2023 and 2022, around 7,000 tons more electricals were recycled, small electricals, and we averaged that out as being at least 14 million items more were recycled in 1 year, which again is quite a significant impact. So Hypnocat's here with a message for you, humans of the UK. You will recycle your electricals. And the next bit is where I hand over to Jonathan, and he talks about how AI is supporting the waste electricals sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Really, really nice job. Always a difficult person to follow. Nonetheless, I will try my very best. So let me share my screen. All right. Can everybody see my slide okay?
Yep.
Experts in vision detection systems should be your first slide. So Santana gave quite a far too grand an introduction for me earlier on. Really, what I want you to remember is that I am just one of a couple of very spirited entrepreneurs who are absolutely committed to helping society address some of the toughest challenges through innovation and thought leadership and technology, and to help address the e-waste challenge that we've been talking about today, which was so visible to so many of us, as Dalin was talking about earlier on, as he witnessed as he drove down the A40, I think he said earlier on. So Lion Vision has been born out of two companies. One is Benson, which is a third generation family engineering business, and Helios. Helios are probably the undisputed market leaders in early warning fire suppression technology. So Lion Vision was born. We talk about use cases, the problems we're trying to fix, and we've been talking about batteries, and we've been talking about vapes and electrical items. This is the challenge that we've been talking about, that Scott was very eloquent in talking about earlier on. And what you can see there is a feed from an e-waste recycling company. And you can see those items that are so problematic. Interestingly, when you look at this, what you can actually see is that battery is already compromised, and you can actually see it igniting, and it causes the issues that we've been talking about already. Now, there's some words on this slide, and you can all read them yourself. The reality is every single day, at least in my world, we are seeing posts on LinkedIn, we're seeing articles in the paper where people are talking about this challenge, this existential e-waste challenge. And I'd submit it to all of you that no company wants to be on the front page of a newspaper or to have their names up in lights in having these challenges. I saw recently a 3.5-minute article on local news because a waste facility in South London had a severe fire, which closed schools. It had a huge impact to the community and the society at large. This is, in addition to the video that Scott was showing earlier on, real validation that this challenge is real. And we and my friends and my colleagues were committed to trying to address that. And we do that through a technology, through a solution that we called Lion Vision. So what is it? It's effectively a vision-based artificial intelligence machine learning capability. And I know we're all terribly frustrated with the overuse of AI, but effectively, what we're doing here is creating models. We're teaching models using, modern frameworks, modern languages in order to detect things and it has to be visual. And in doing so, not only are we helping to reduce that risk that we've been talking about, but this technology is actually allowing companies, recyclers, to make money by helping them produce higher quality materials or producing more reliable, more pure materials. We're helping them save money by actually repurposing assets and people to more valuable revenue generating tasks. And in doing so, we're helping these organizations modernize. Why? Well, it's 2024. And unless you are selling and you have digital assets, any company today, in order to compete, has to be a modern data-driven organization. So back onto the topic of batteries. They are everywhere. And what we're showing on the screen here is some of the examples of the cylinder batteries that we've been working to remove from the waste stream in a company that we've been working with. Now, we focused initially on cylinder batteries. Why? Because about 60% of the batteries that were passing through this facility that were potentially at risk of igniting, as Scott was describing earlier on, are cylinder batteries. So that was a logical place for us to start. So we've effectively taught Lion Vision to be able to detect batteries as they're going through the waste stream. We do that initially locally, and then we work through modern frameworks and languages to actually produce a solution that's enabled to sit on a customer site and do exactly what I've just described. Now, this is a short video that I'll play here, and we've sped this up, as you can see, a great many times, but this is a real feed in a real waste recycling facility. And what you can see is all of the different types of batteries that it's detecting, all of the different types of batteries that we've trained this solution in order to, we've trained this solution to detect. So we're looking at alkali batteries, lithium-ion batteries, but also trying to identify the batteries by their manufacturers as well. Just to bring to life the size of this challenge, this is one recycling facility. Through the course of July, we detected a huge amounts of batteries. And this, by the way, is not unique to July. This could be almost any month of the year. You can read yourself. Lion Vision is capable of taking more than 500,000 images a day. On this site in July, we were detecting on average 5,700 cylinder batteries. At its peak, we were detecting almost 12,000 batteries. And again, it's really important for us to be able to understand not just the makeup of the battery, but actually the brand itself. This is just a brief snapshot, again, just to try and bring to life for you as I tell the story of these spirited entrepreneurs who are trying to address this problem, what we're actually seeing, because often this really does come as something of a surprise. Whilst we all talk about recycling, Scott mentioned before, I think 80% of the population want to recycle. What we are still seeing is a lot of carelessness when it comes to recycling of various electrical goods. Here is a good example of how we're using AI, and I'll come on in a minute to show how Lion Vision actually works in reality. But in many of these recycling facilities today, there's a lot of manual work that goes on by way of folks who are pickers who are responsible for extracting the batteries. So in addition to using the technology that we've developed, we're also using, by the way, to extract, we're also using the same technology to help and facilitate the pickers on these sites to remove these objects. So what you're seeing here is a screen within a picking booth, for those of you who are familiar with what they would look like. And also you can see a red light. That red light only illuminates when Lion Vision sees a battery downstream, and it knows exactly a given point in time where that battery is likely to be. So as the battery traverses through the picking booths, the light will come on to let the pickers know there is a battery present here, and your job is to try and remove that battery. Now, the huge amount of analysis went into this, and just by this one simple change to the process, by putting a light within the picking booth connected to the line vision technology, the amount of batteries that passed through the picking booth reduced significantly. So this, in and of itself, without automated extraction, had a material impact within this organization in both helping them make money through product purity, helping them reduce costs because they didn't need as many pickers within these picking booths, but also helping to reduce the risk of these items igniting. So as Scott said, we all love the power of three. So DVE, Line Vision will detect batteries. In fact, it can be trained to detect almost anything. We started with batteries because that was the first exam question that we were given to fix. But just because you can detect something, who cares? Ultimately, you've got to be able to visualize in real time what's actually happening. So we've been able to create hierarchical dashboards so we can look for lots of trends and patterns. For example, why do we see more batteries coming through on a Tuesday morning? How do we see the different picking teams perform night shifts versus day shifts? There's lots of analysis that we can do to look at the different types and the different manufacturers of batteries, potentially linked to local discounting within the low-cost stores of batteries themselves. Same goes for vapes and anything else that contain lithium-ion batteries. So with the visualization, we're able to take immediate action. We're running in real time. We see an event and we can act immediately. And then the third leg of this stool is to be able to extract. How do we get these items out? And in fact, when it comes to batteries, specifically cylinder batteries, how do we have some kind of segmentation? So we detect, we visualize, and we extract. This is a rig that we have in our demo facility. This again is a brief video. What you can see here is the hardware of the hood sitting above the conveyor. To the left, what you will see is the extraction. And of course, the secret sauce, the thing that actually makes all of this work, is the software. I'll play this video, and what you'll see moving along the conveyor are a number of foreign objects, the type of things that you would find in any site, along with a number of batteries. And you'll see here just exactly how we're able to separate the batteries from the rest. So it's really quite contemporary. Now, what I'd like to do is to show you this in a real life environment where we've taken our extraction technology, we've retrofitted it into an existing recycler in order to complete the extraction. It's important to note that we've been working with this company, this specific use case, for quite some time. We've done the detection. We can, detect 100% of the batteries we're able to see. We've got the visualization, so we know exactly what's happening, the trends and the patterns, and we can do all the optimization that we talked about within the picking booth. And now we're doing the extraction. Now, this video that I'm about to play is taken from a camera that was just outside of the moving conveyor. And what you will see is almost like a waterfall, all of the debris coming over the top, coming straight off this belt, connecting onto another belt further down. And what we have just above that is the extraction, which is built on airjet capability. We can use robots, we can use rams. In this particular example, we're using airjets. And the airjets are separating the batteries from that waste stream as it pours over the top of the belt. Now, hopefully, that explanation has done some justice. And when I play this video, you will see these items. And what we've done, just to bring this to life, is we've anticipated where we know the batteries are, highlighted them in the video, and you can see them being separated. Now, it's important to note, this was done a number of months ago. And we've actually fine-tuned this much more now, so it's taking less of the other foreign bodies out with the batteries. However, it's important to note that most companies we work with will be more than happy if we remove some non-batteries if it means they're going to extract all of their lithium-ion batteries from their process. So without further ado, I'll play the video. So there you go. Hopefully that brought it to the life. We're doing the detection, we're doing the visualization, and we're doing the extraction. Now, you heard me at the start talk about use cases. So we will talk about cylinder batteries as a use case. We will talk about button batteries as a use case. We'll talk about vapes as a use case, tool packs as a use case, and so on and so forth. These are all of the areas where we've got a high degree of expertise and proven credibility in extracting the items from the waste stream. But we're always looking for new use cases. We're always looking for exam questions from the various recyclers or anybody else, for that matter, who has items that they want to be able to detect and remove from a process. So with that, I'll move on to the final slide, which really is the prompt for me to stop sharing, hand back to Scott or perhaps David, where I believe we're going to be available to answer any of your questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. So you can type your question in the chat, or if you want to speak your question, you can raise your hand. So the first question is from Andy. What can I do with several generations of hardware from the Sinclair ZX80 through to current Windows 11 filling my garage?
Anything with a plug battery and cable can be recycled. So I'd imagine if it's historic, there may be a market for that on somewhere like eBay, and the sort of hobbyist might be interested in trying to fix something up. But yeah, it can be recycled if you're holding on to it. The copper, the lithium, the gold that's sitting in it is essentially sitting idle, and it's the kind of stuff, the kind of material that we need to deliver the green tech future.
Hi, this is Darlan. Could I just add something? The BCS has a computer conservation specialist group. Is anybody here representing that, or is there anybody part of that computer conservation group? Can't see any hands up, but my suggestion is perhaps email BCS and ask that question, because they are connected with bodies such as the Science Museum and other hobbyists who collect generations of old IT equipment. So you might find your unwanted electronics taking pride of place in somebody's collection.
Just not to push back on that. I used to be a curator at the Science Museum for a couple of years. We often would get people who would bring things to us. I don't know how many times we went to visit somebody with a Singer sewing machine. They do have a good collection of anything and everything that's ever done, but there will be smaller museums and charities that might be interested in that sort of stuff. We also had, just as a sort of an aside, we used to have a rota, because very often someone would come and to the main museum and say that they figured out the challenge of perpetual motion. And we had a daily roster where we would have to go out if we were called to say, I don't think you have fixed perpetual motion machines. But anyway, that's just a sideline to that story. But yes, I think there will be charities potentially interested, but also the Science Museum is very good at getting what it needs to record the history of technology.
Okay, thanks. We've got a question for Jonathan. The AI works on the basis that the battery is removed from its housing or casing. What about identifying batteries that are still encased?
So to answer your question, effectively, we can teach it to detect almost anything. What we tend to find in these sites is the batteries are normally outside of the casing. You know, we talked about vapes and electric toothbrushes because most of them have gone through some kind of shredding process in the infancy of the process. So what we typically see, having gone through these shredding processes, the batteries are normally outside of their casing. Again, if we're looking specifically for cylinder batteries and they're hidden or they're enclosed or they're inside something, we won't be able to spot them. However, it can be trained, for example, to detect a rechargeable toothbrush if the batteries were still inside them. So again, line vision is vision-based. We need to be able to see objects, but we can, in theory, train the model to be able to detect anything.
I think something that I was interested to learn about, or was surprised hadn't really thought about before when I first started looking at all of this stuff, is how variable the design of lithium-ion batteries are, particularly those that are hidden inside of electricals, because at that point, the drive, you know, if you think about how a product is designed, then the size, the shape of that, and the power of that battery is a big factor in it. So whilst in a vape, you have essentially a very basic cylinder type lithium-ion battery. When you think of some of the small tech, things like earpods, for example, I've seen within two different models from Apple, the adaptation of the batteries, both shape and size. So in one model, it was a very thin cylinder that was sitting in the stick that sort of popped down. And then in a new variant, they moved it to more, a very small, but more like button cell shaped one. And it came up higher up into the unit. And that's happening across all manner of technology. So I think the challenge for the AI is continuous, because you've got rectangular ones, you've got round ones, you've got cylinder ones, and they're adapting all the time. And it's very clear that nobody is designing portable technology with any real mind to the lithium cell being easily identifiable or recovered at end of life.
Perhaps just to add to that, Scott, what we see as well is a lot of items are really quite significantly damaged or deformed. So over time, we can still train the model to detect items that are disfigured. So it's this, as you say, this iterative, constant process of training based upon, you know, and that's one of the things that we have is a huge library of images that we can use to expedite the process from installation to value through that teaching process.
Okay, thanks. We've got a practical question. What are the recycling options for old smartphones?
Go to the website, recycle your electricals, pop in your postcodes, 26,000 drop-off points, a mixture of solutions. We also flag if local authorities have curbside collections. With smart devices, there are concerns about the handling of data. So if anything that goes, that route there is probably, we have a data deletion guide working with the Information Commissioner's Office that's available as well. And but retailers tend to be the better route for that, because they will take on that data. For a data bearing device, they definitely ensure that the data is cleaned on it. But there's loads of options, and it's your call to sort of find the one that works best for you, either one that's near to work, one that's near to home, or bag up that drawer, tidy it up, and then the next time you visit the recycling center, take those along with you, because every household waste recycling center has electricals recycling points. I noticed there's a question in the chat about why don't we work with councils. We do. 25% of the UK has a curbside collection service for electricals. Regretfully, only 25% of the people in that 25% actually know about it, because the communications haven't cut through. But it's not, you know, the collection of materials from households is very complex, and it's not, you know, if you're collecting electricals, which ultimately could be considered to be hazardous, do have danger concerns with them as well. It's not just, you know, bung it onto the recycling lorry. That takes investment, it takes commitment, it takes communication. So we do support councils as well with public bring banks, the pink bring banks that you've seen. They work for certain councils, and others we support them with collection points in libraries and other public buildings too.
Okay, great. Well, I don't see any more questions at the moment. So if you do have a remaining question, then please type it into the chat as soon as you can.
Somebody was asking about fire extinguishers. So I don't know if there's any sort of battery in them or something like that, Jonathan.
No, not that I'm aware of. Well, I've got enough problems. Don't give me fire extinguishers to try and fix as well. No, I'm not too sure about fire extinguishers, but they would, I guess, be considered to be pressured gas canisters. There has been a growing concern with the what's it called? The NOx, the laughing gas, where it's quite popular in certain communities and certain age groups, and they've caused problems because people are getting hold of the industrial size units, the catering ones, and they're going into the wrong place, and they can have a similar effect. But yeah, so I know I was being a bit flippant with the fire extinguisher, just looking at the chat. I don't know if you've ever looked at fire extinguishers, Jonathan. They don't tend to get to electricals recycling plants, I'd say. That would be picked off very early. That wouldn't go into an electrical recycling plant because it would have been screened before it got there.
Yeah, I think they're much easier to be able to separate through some of the other processes that you see. But again, just for completeness, I'm not consistent. We could train Lion Vision to detect a fire extinguisher if someone had a big enough problem. But I think there's probably other processes where they're picked up during the actual process within a MRF, for example.
I see the question about developing nations for older electronics. There are some well-established third sector organizations that do look at getting tech to those in need. It's very important that that is properly screened within the UK because there is also unscrupulous activity. One of the big issues for the Environment Agency when checking containers being shipped is that often containers that are labeled as used but working technology, they open the container up. The first set is relatively okay stuff, and then the rest of it is frankly just waste that is taking advantage of poor, badly managed treatment over in West Africa. So there's a place for it. It just needs to be done, by approved, registered charities who there are a number of. Regretfully, it's too often utilized by those who don't have that probity.
Okay, we've got a question from Jake. Would a more formal financial incentive for battery and electronic recycling at the recycling banks themselves, like in Europe for glass and plastic bottles, encourage more people to do so, or would this be infeasible here in the UK?
That's sometimes labeled as deposit return. So for packaging, you've got well-established deposit return systems. As of yet, the economics for that for electricals has not really ever been shown or proven. Yes, it's valuable material, but relatively speaking, in the context of one item, it's not so much, and the mechanism is not there. It has been mooted. I've never seen a proper test case of it. Currys are playing around with that at the moment with what they call it. I don't think it's a great name necessarily, but they have a thing called cash for trash vouchers, which is a form of incentive to get people to recycle their electricals. It comes around when regulations are looked at, but it's never gotten past that initial stage of should we seriously look at it.
Okay, we've got a question from Colin. Some organizations helpfully provide a bin to collect batteries. Does that itself provide a fire hazard as it's inside the building?
Oof. Possibly. Pretty much every retailer who sells a battery should be offering take back for batteries. So that's every supermarket, every Metro, equivalent supermarket should be doing that. Some do, some don't. It's exactly the same for vapes as well. Anyone who's selling a vape should be offering take back and paying the cost for recycling the vape. Regretfully, hardly any of them do it. And that's one of the reasons they're so cheap and they're so profitable, is that the actual environmental cost classic externalities being avoided by them and being pushed, or the risk and cost is being pushed out to the public. So there's a lot of work in looking at pulling those organizations quickly into compliance, and we'll see if that works. It does pose the question around that. Most portable batteries, the risk assessment to date for a mix of Panasonic Duracell batteries is comparatively low. That's why they're there. The onset of vapes is quite different. You've never had so many, as I said there, 5 million a week. You've never had so many lithium-ion batteries ever come onto the market like that. And also they're in a relatively robust casing of a sort, but still it's not, they're not inside a safe or anything like that. It is posing some questions and some challenges as to, whether these products should be allowed on the market, regardless of public health concerns. Whether they should be allowed on the market just from an environmental and a fire risk perspective, because is it worth it?
Okay, we got a comment from Margaret about the links that Santana's been posting. So yeah, we can put those on the website when we publish the video. So we got a question from Andy. A lot of charities collect and recycle electronic waste. Is it a good system?
Horses for courses for me. It really depends. There's a lot of good reuse third sector organizations that collect furniture, appliances that they can refurbish. They have good standards that they all of their members follow, and they support people who may not have the economic freedoms that others have to get what are essentially basic, needs now. The ability, your washing machines, fridges, those sort of things. So that can work very, very well. Again, it's dependent on the quality control. And, these people, are they following the regulations? And also safety is an increasing issue with appliances as well. You do have manufacturers of, if I say it's a Whirlpool dryer that's then been refurbished by somebody else, when it's in use, for the user, it's a Whirlpool dryer. But it might have had a heating element changed on it or something like that. So it's very important that the standards are maintained as well. But it's different things for different types of appliances at different ages in their life cycle too. One of the things that comes up a lot with appliances is what's the pinch point as to when is it better from an energy cost, water use perspective to actually, recycle and recover the materials, and a newer, more efficient product would actually be a better product for the end user. So it's in that mix of that system with all of these factors playing a part. But definitely there is space and room for good refurbishers, reuse charities, and there always will be. The other thing that's very relevant to you guys is digital inclusion. So, there's still a significant part of the population who are not included in the digital world, which is now essential for pretty much most services that they need. And there's a lot of tech that's sitting dormant. There's a lot of businesses who are increasingly looking at this. We've actually got a project that we're hoping to launch in the East Midlands next month, looking at whether we can get the public to donate some of their old smart tech, because that's not really been done at scale yet.
Okay, we've got a question from Peter. How does take back work if I buy from Amazon?
Do you want the honest answer, or do you want the diplomatic one?
Could they collect it when you receive the order?
They did have a buried on page. Sorry, my dog is going to pick up the book. Buried on page 9062 of the Amazon website, there was a post-back trial that they offered recently. The responsibilities on online marketplaces are not the same as for bricks and mortar retailers. So strictly speaking, at the moment, Amazon offer to take back your electrical if you can get it to one of their depots, which are of course almost impossible to actually work in practice. The government have consulted on new regulations, which has somewhat been delayed by the new government, and talk of developing a wholesale new circular economy strategy. So it's what's this space at the moment. But yeah, if you are an online electrical retailer, your requirements are significantly lower than if you actually had stores.
Okay, we've got a question from Michael. More and more small devices such as bike lights and head torches have moved away from traditional batteries to USB-C recharging. Are we seeing a fall in the sale of AAA and AA batteries?
I'm conscious of talking, but Jonathan, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
I don't know what the official numbers are, but what I can tell you in my experience of spending time within these recycling facilities, you certainly wouldn't notice if they are going down. In fact, it's quite the opposite. As Scott was saying with vapes, what did you say, 5 million disposed of a week?
Yeah.
There's no sign of slowing down. Maybe the use of them has perhaps changed. As you say, I have had torches when I'm out running and on my bike and such like, whereas before I probably had cylinder batteries. I recharge them. Nonetheless, there are so many other items that are requiring cylinder batteries. I can't conceive of a notion whereby battery sales would be coming down. However, I don't have the official numbers or statistics, but anecdotally, and the reason why we're given so many exam questions from recyclers is down in part to the burgeon and the explosion of batteries within the waste stream. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, great. Well, I don't see any more questions. So any more, then please type them in as soon as you can.
I think there's a question. I saw a question about toothbrushes, which I think Jonathan sort of partly answered. Any individual battery should go to the loose battery should go to the battery recycling points at supermarkets and other retailers. Anything with a hidden battery, if you can't easily take it out, the advice would be don't try and take it out, because if it is a lithium-ion battery, that's probably the greatest risk point when you've got your pliers out and you're trying to pull it through. So that should go in with the other electricals, and the electricals recyclers have systems in place to screen that at various points. So the pre-feed, pre-initial feed, post-initial mechanical, and then obviously we've seen a great example today of what Lion Vision are offering too. So loose batteries in the battery recycling bin, anything that's got a hidden battery that you can't get at and separate, then put that in with the electricals.
Okay, well, I think that's the last of the questions. So I will hand back to Santana. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just a question for Jonathan. I just wanted to understand, like, from the perspective of these batteries, if they are lithium batteries, what's the repurpose for these batteries? Would they go into making something else, or reconditioned batteries, or what would be the end product after they recycle them through the plant?
Thank you, Santana. What I see is these batteries being separated, as I showed earlier on. And then what normally happens is those batteries are then sent to facilities that specialize in the reclamation and disposal of those items. Again, I'm guessing, because I'm not an expert on recycling, trying to take any valuable materials from that. Does that make sense to you, Scott? Are you aware of any?
Yeah. So I mean, any recycler, essentially, recycling is a business. So the way of making money is to maximize the value from the material that you handle. In the world of waste electricals and portable batteries, you do have some support from extended producer responsibility legislation, but you're still driven by the same things. When we first came across vapes, I was trying to figure out, so the lithium-ion battery that is in vape can theoretically be recharged hundreds of times. But so I was trying to figure out, why did they have a lithium-ion cell in a single-use product? And I bumped into a sort of product scientist at a conference, and who was specialized in vapes, and asked him why. And he said it was about the performance. lithium-ion chemistry is able to deliver a lot very, very quickly. So it's more than say nickel metal hydride or alkaline. It has a big punch. Partly, I think, linked to when they get set on fire, they go very big. It can release a lot of power very quickly. So it's very much a product need of disposable vapes to heat the coil that heats the liquid and turns it into vapor was driving that. So those cells are very specifically for vapes. We did come across a company who was trying to recover vapes in the UK, ship them in containers to Malaysia, where they would have been treated, and try and sell separated, and try and sell the batteries back to the vape producers, who are vast majority of them are based in China. We did explain at the time, I'm not sure you can internationally ship hazardous, dangerous, UN coded waste, and I've not heard from that organization for a while. So you've got a theoretical circular economy there of sorts. God forbid it would happen in that sort of sector, but the transboundary shipment of hazardous materials and things like that gets in the way of it too. So at the moment, all the lithium-ion batteries that are collected from disposable items like that are processed, and it's a material recovery. And a lot of innovation is going into that too, and they're looking at more modular. It's quite energy intensive, so there's only a few plants that can actually handle lots of batteries because of it's power hungry process to get to them, ironically, I guess.
Yeah, another question, Scott, I had was, for example, I had I think it's the Royal Mint have now set up a new plant in the UK to repurpose some of the electronics that are in our mobile devices or our computers. Do you see that as an industry that was probably got more potential here and more of those? Because I think the UK is the second largest e-waste producer. So if we sort of generate the skills and have a market where this could be reprocessed or reused in different ways, do you see it sort of changing a bit?
It's got real potential. So we've come across, so we know Royal Mint, and it's a very interesting project. And they've launched this new technology. I think the plant is still yet to fully open, and they're very good. I wish I should have called us Royal Material Focus, because I think if you put the Royal in front of your name, you get some amazing coverage. So that's, if you're ever to go back and set up another company, I'm going to put Royal in the title, is the lesson I've learned. But yes, it's interesting. So there's a few other modular technologies. As I said before, like batteries, PCBs tend to get bagged up and shipped to the continent because it's one of those big scale sort of processes. So I think what's interesting about these smaller technologies is, could they become more modular? Could you have them sitting at electrical recyclers, in a corner doing their work? Whilst the Royal Mint thing is great, their objective is very much focused on gold, and gold to go into beautifully designed jewelry and commemorative coins. And if that's, for me, not a question mark, because that's their business. But of course, we are talking about more than gold, and we're talking about it being these materials being essential for other things than just jewelry and commemorative coins. But more power to them. They're doing a lot of good work, and be looking forward to see how it progresses for them.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions. Thanks.
Okay, well, I guess it's time to wrap up. I hope you've enjoyed that and found it interesting, as I have. I have a secret suspicion that the answer to all of this is to get legislation, if not persuasion, to manufacturers and to marketers to extend the life and value of our products so that we don't need to recycle them so frequently. That still seems to me a very basic and obvious solution to all of this. But we are in a society which could be subtitled material greed. So I'm not sure how easy that's going to be. But that is surely an answer that we should try and extend our use of these products or get them to people who can. So with that thought and the links that you've seen throughout the chat and so on, and the contacts you've now made with Scott and Jonathan, please join me in thanking our two speakers very much. Scott and Jonathan, thank you very much. Carry on with your good work. We look forward to hearing and seeing you further at a future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Pleasure.